The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council chamber stretched impossibly high, their translucent surfaces refracting starlight in patterns that made Admiral Sarah Chen's eyes water. She stood at the back of the human delegation, watching their representatives fumble through diplomatic niceties, while her tactical display implant silently counted incoming emergency signals from the outer colonies. 37 distress calls in the last hour alone. The Arcturus delegate, a towering figure with iridescent scales and far too many teeth, was in the middle of another condescending speech about humanity's technological inadequacies. And really, your species' obsession with naval combat is charming, but thoroughly obsolete. The concept of submarines in space. Laughable. Sarah's implant pinged again. Nueva Chell colony had gone dark. The Galactic Council is willing to extend its protection. The Ztexthar representative added, their crystalline form pulsing with what Sarah recognized as barely concealed amusement, in exchange for certain, reasonable concessions regarding military development. The human ambassadors seated at the grand table shifted uncomfortably. They were career diplomats, chosen for their ability to navigate complex political waters. But Sarah had been a soldier too long not to recognize a coordinated attack when she saw one. Her neural link chirped, and a holographic message scrolled across her field of vision. Nueva Chell colony. High and ale transmission. Unknown vessels. Celestimates destruction of civilian habitats. No survivors. Sarah's fingers tightened on the ceremonial rail until her knuckles went white. The timing was too perfect. These attacks, coinciding exactly with humanity's first formal presentation to the Council. The patronizing offers of protection. She'd seen this pattern before, in Earth's own history. Create a crisis, then offer salvation. At a price. Perhaps, the Arcturus delegate continued, showing entirely too many teeth. We should discuss the terms of humanity's protected status immediately. Given the unfortunate incidents in your outer territories, Sarah's tactical training kicked in, analyzing subtle shifts in body language across the chamber. The Arcturus delegate's scales rippled with satisfaction. The Ztexthar representative's crystalline form vibrated at a frequency her implant tagged as anticipation. Even the usually stoic Meridian observers were showing signs of keen interest. They knew. They all knew. Admiral Chen. One of the human diplomats turned to her, sweat beading on his forehead. Your assessment of the situation. Sarah stepped forward, her boots clicking against the ancient floor. The chamber's perfect acoustics carried the sound to every corner. She noticed how several delegates flinched at the martial rhythm of her approach. Good. Let them be reminded that humans weren't just diplomats in fine suits. The attacks on our colonies are too coordinated to be random, she stated, her voice carrying the weight of command. The targeting is precise, focusing on civilian infrastructure rather than military assets. The attackers knew exactly where to hit us to cause maximum panic with minimum strategic damage. The Arcturus delegate's scales flickered in a pattern her implant couldn't quite decode. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. Sarah cut him off, earning a gasp from the diplomatic corps. I'm simply stating facts. Humanity achieved faster-than-light travel less than a decade ago. Yet somehow pirates managed to locate and attack our most vulnerable colonies within hours of our arrival here. Colonies whose locations weren't even included in our application to the Council. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. Sarah pressed her advantage. Furthermore, our naval traditions aren't primitive. They're tested. Humanity spent centuries mastering three-dimensional combat in Earth's oceans. We learned warfare in an environment where threats could come from any direction, where pressure could crush steel, and where the medium of battle itself could be turned into a weapon. She stepped closer to the council table, noting how several delegates leaned away. You offer protection in exchange for military submission. But I wonder, what are you really afraid of? That will fail, or that will succeed. The chamber erupted in overlapping translations and outraged responses. Sarah's implant pinged again. Another colony under attack. But this time, she caught it. The slight twitch of satisfaction from the Arcturus delegate. "Admiral," he rumbled, "surely you're not implying." "I'm not implying anything," Sarah repeated, steel in her voice. "I'm giving you a warning. Humanity didn't survive centuries of warfare on Earth by being helpless. We didn't cross the void between stars by being afraid. And we certainly didn't come here to surrender our right to defend ourselves." She turned to leave, pausing only to deliver a final message. "You mock our naval traditions. You call us primitive. But remember this, every species in this chamber evolved from predators. And any good predator knows, it's not the teeth you can see that you should fear. It's the ones you don't notice until it's too late." As the chamber dissolved into chaos behind her, Sarah opened a secure channel to Earth. "Implementation of Protocol Leviathan is now authorized. All ships, all stations. The wolves are at our door. And it's time to show them why humanity's waters run deep." In the darkness of the asteroid belt, construction lights began to flicker to life, illuminating the skeleton of something ancient and new, terrible and beautiful. Humanity's first true warship was about to be born. Dr. Marcus Wong stood in the cavernous construction bay, carved into the heart of Ceres, watching sparks cascade from the skeletal framework suspended before him. The TSS Leviathan was taking shape, but not fast enough. Not with colonies falling silent every day. The water circulation system failed again, his assistant reported, scrolling through diagnostics on her tablet. "Third time this week." Marcus rubbed his temples, fighting back exhaustion. They'd been working 20-hour shifts for weeks, trying to merge centuries of naval engineering with bleeding-edge space technology. The result was either going to be revolutionary or blow up in their faces, possibly both. "Dr. Wong," a voice called from behind him. "Got a minute?" He turned to find Maria Suarez, one of the maintenance staff, clutching a worn notebook. She'd been watching their failed tests, and something in her expression caught his attention. "The water system," she said, opening her notebook to reveal pages of hand-drawn diagrams. "You're trying to use it just for radiation shielding and emergency propulsion. But what if it could be more?" Marcus studied her drawings. They were rough but showed a fundamental understanding of fluid dynamics that surprised him. "You've worked on submarines." 20 years, Brazilian Navy," she smiled. "Before they recruited me for space station maintenance. And let me tell you, there's more than one way to use water as a weapon." 3 hours later, Marcus stood before Admiral Chen in the secure briefing room, Maria's notebook on the table between them. "It's brilliant," he said, barely containing his excitement. "We've been so focused on copying alien energy weapons that we missed the obvious. Water isn't just shielding, it's ammunition." The Admiral raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "In space, the difference between shielding and weaponry is just a matter of direction and velocity." Marcus activated a holographic simulation. "Traditional energy weapons are powerful but predictable. Everyone uses them because they're efficient. But water?" He grinned. "Water is chaos incarnate." The simulation showed the Leviathan's proposed water circulation system. "In an emergency, we can vent the shielding as propellant. But with Maria's modifications, we can also weaponize it. Imagine thousands of ice projectiles, flash-frozen and accelerated to relativistic speeds, or clouds of superheated steam used as chaff against energy weapons. The possibilities are endless. And the power requirements. That's the beauty of it." Marcus gestured to another diagram. "We're not creating energy from scratch like beam weapons. We're just changing states of matter. The same systems that keep our crew alive become our primary weapons. It's elegantly primitive." A warning klaxon interrupted them. "Security breach in Section 7. The announcement echoed through the asteroid. "Unknown intruders detected." Marcus watched the Admiral's expression harden. They'd both known this was coming. The Leviathan's existence couldn't remain secret forever. "Protect the designs," she ordered, drawing her sidearm. especially Maria's modifications. The enemy can't know what we're building here. The next few hours were chaos. Saboteurs had somehow infiltrated the facility, disguised as maintenance workers. They fought their way toward the main construction bay, clearly targeting the Leviathan's prototype systems. But they hadn't counted on Maria. When the intruders breached the water purification sector, she calmly initiated an accidental system overload. Tons of pressurized water exploded through the corridors, flash freezing in the near vacuum, and turning the entire section into a deadly maze of ice and trapped infiltrators. Like I said, she told Marcus later, as security led away the frozen saboteurs, water can be one hell of a weapon. The incident only accelerated their work. Within days, the Leviathan's first weapons test was ready. They'd cleared half of Ceres' testing range, aiming at decommissioned satellites placed as targets. Primary water circulation systems online, Marcus announced, monitoring the readouts. Preparing for weaponized discharge test. Keep medical on standby, Admiral Chen warned. We still don't know if this will. The test fired before she could finish. A focused stream of water, flash-frozen into hypersonic projectiles, erupted from the Leviathan's prototype cannon. It didn't just destroy the target satellite, it vaporized half the testing range. Stunned silence filled the control room. Well, Maria said finally, I guess we know it works. The success changed everything. Within hours, new orders arrived from Earth Command. The Leviathan wasn't just going to be a prototype anymore, it was going to war. As construction crews swarmed over the ship, completing its systems with renewed urgency, Marcus found Admiral Chen staring at the vessel through the observation window. The aliens think we're primitive, she said quietly. They see our naval traditions as quaint, our technology as backward. They'll expect energy weapons and shield matrices. Instead, Marcus watched ice crystals form and fade along the Leviathan's hull as they tested the circulation systems. They'll get something they've never seen before, something older than civilization itself. Water shaped our world, the Admiral mused. Taught us how to fight in 3 dimensions long before we reached space. And now it's going to reshape the galaxy. Marcus checked his tablet as another successful test registered. They wanted to see humanity's first warship. Let's show them what primitive really means. In the darkness of Ceres, the Leviathan's systems hummed to life, water flowing through its veins like blood. Humanity's answer to the galaxy's threats was almost ready, and it was going to change everything. Captain Diana Rodriguez stood on the Leviathan's bridge, watching the holographic display as another distress signal pulsed from the refugee convoy. 5,000 civilians from Nueva Chile, fleeing in whatever ships they could salvage, now found themselves trapped between their pursuers and an ancient defensive grid. Pirates closing from stern, her tactical officer reported. 6 ships, or in configuration, but something's off about their energy signatures. Diana knew what he meant. These weren't typical pirates. Their attack patterns were too precise, their coordination too perfect. They moved like a military unit. Status of the refugee ships, she demanded, pushing away memories of her own family's last transmission from Nueva Chile. Focus on the living, she reminded herself. The dead would have their justice soon enough. 11 minutes until they reached the defense grid's activation range, her navigator answered. The grid's showing signs of powering up. Ancient alien tech, probably automated. It'll target anything that moves. Diana studied the tactical display. The Leviathan was an unknown factor. Neither the pirates nor the defense grid would know how to classify it. That could be an advantage. Engineering. How's our water reserve? Tanks at 97%, Captain. All circulation systems nominal. She allowed herself a small smile. Perfect. Here's what we're going to do. The plan was insane. Most of her crew knew it, but they trained for this, drilled countless scenarios that seemed impossible until they became routine. Bring us about, Diana ordered. Set course directly for the defense grid. Maximum thrust. Captain, her XO questioned. The grid will. The grid will do exactly what we want it to do, Diana interrupted, because we're going to show it something it's never seen before. The Leviathan accelerated toward the ancient defensive line, its massive water tanks humming with potential energy. Behind them, the pirate fleet followed, probably assuming they were attempting to punch through. They weren't. Defense grid powering up, Tactical announced. Reading energy weapons charging. They're targeting the refugee ships first. Not today, Diana whispered. Execute pattern typhoon. The Leviathan's outer tanks erupted simultaneously, releasing precisely calculated streams of water into space. The liquid instantly froze, creating a massive cloud of ice crystals spreading in their wake. The defense grid sensors, designed to target energy signatures and solid masses, went haywire. The cloud appeared as thousands of tiny targets, overwhelming its ancient targeting systems. Pirates entering the cloud, Tactical reported with satisfaction. Their energy weapons are. Captain, you need to see this. Diana watched as the pirate fleet's energy weapons discharged into the ice cloud. Instead of burning through, the beams refracted, split by countless frozen crystals. Several pirates took hits from their own deflected weapons. Now for the real fun, Diana said. Engineering, initiate secondary water release. Tactical, calculate firing solutions through the cloud. Let's show them why humanity's naval experience matters. The Leviathan's main guns roared to life, launching streams of accelerated ice projectiles through their own cloud. Unlike energy weapons, the physical projectiles weren't affected by the refraction. They tore through the confused pirate fleet with devastating accuracy. Direct hits on 3 enemy vessels, Tactical announced. There, Captain, these ships have Arcturus Imperial markings under the pirate colors. Diana filed that information away for later. Right now, they had civilians to save. Bring us around for another pass, she ordered, and get me a channel to that defense grid's command frequencies. What followed was either brilliant or suicidal. The Leviathan broadcast old naval identification codes, not Imperial or Galactic Council protocols, but simple mathematical sequences used by Earth's ancient mariners. The defense grid, programmed to recognize patterns of intelligent life, hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, Diana made her move. Release the remaining water reserves, she commanded. All of it. The Leviathan vented its water tanks in a massive burst, creating a temporary corridor of frozen particles between the refugee ships and safety. The defense grid, still struggling to process the unfamiliar patterns, couldn't get a target locked through the ice field. Refugee ships are through. Navigation reported triumphantly. Defense grid is standing down. Captain, it's accepting our identification codes. Diana allowed herself to breathe. They'd saved the civilians, exposed the false pirates, and apparently impressed a piece of ancient alien technology. Not bad for their first real combat. Ma'am, her XO approached with a datapad. We've analyzed the surviving pirate vessels. These aren't random attacks. Someone supplied them with Imperial military ships, stripped of identification. Someone wanted this to look like piracy while testing our defenses. No, Diana corrected, studying the tactical data. Not testing. Training. These attacks, the defense grid, it's all too perfect. Someone's not just studying our responses. They're learning how to fight us. She turned to her crew, seeing the same realization dawn on their faces. Send word to Admiral Chen. Tell her we've confirmed her suspicions. This isn't random violence. It's reconnaissance for an invasion. And we just showed them exactly what humanity's first warship can do. In the silence of space, surrounded by clouds of crystallized water and defeated enemies, the Leviathan had proven itself. But Diana knew this was just the beginning. The real war was coming, and humanity's enemies were watching. They'd better be taking notes. The Kuiper Belt stretched before them like a hunter's paradise, a realm of ice and shadow where anything could hide. Captain Rodriguez stood at the Leviathan's command station, watching the tactical display track their quarry through the darkness. Contact bearing 340 Mark II, her sensor officer whispered, maintaining the bridge's tense atmosphere. Moving slow, using the ice fragments for cover. Diana smiled. The pirates thought they were being clever, using old submarine warfare tactics. They didn't realize they were playing directly into humanity's strengths. Multiple contacts now. Tactical updated. 6. No, 8 vessels. Definitely Imperial design under that pirate camouflage. They're setting up a trap. No, Diana corrected. They're setting up our trap. Engineering, status of the water reserves. Tanks at maximum capacity, Captain. All systems primed for pattern Hydra. The Leviathan had been trailing these ships for 3 days, following them deeper into the belt. Each time they seemed to get close, the enemy would vanish into the ice fields. It was a familiar dance to any submarine veteran. The careful stalking of prey that thought itself the predator. They're spreading out, her XO noted. Classic wolf pack formation. They think they've lured us into their kill zone. Diana's fingers traced the tactical display, mapping vectors in her mind. Look at their positioning. They're not just using Imperial ships, they're using Imperial naval doctrine, trying to force us into a predetermined engagement window. Ma'am, communications interrupted. We're picking up low-band transmissions between their ships. They're speaking Imperial standard, but there's something odd about the syntax. Record everything, Diana ordered, and prepare to execute pattern Hydra on my mark. Let's show them why you don't challenge humanity to a game of hide and seek in ice fields. The enemy fleet continued their elaborate trap setting, unaware that every movement was playing into the Leviathan strategy. Diana had spent hours studying Imperial naval tactics, and one thing had become clear. They thought in straight lines, in direct cause and effect. They never considered that water could be more than just a barrier. All hands, she announced shipwide. Prepare for extreme maneuvering. Engineering, begin primary sequence for pattern Hydra. The Leviathan's massive water tanks hummed to life, but instead of venting their contents as weapons, the ship began a precise series of small releases, countless tiny jets of water freezing instantly in space, creating a three-dimensional maze of ice crystals around them. Enemy fleet is responding, Tactical reported. They're launching probes. No, those are targeting drones. They're trying to map our position through the ice field. Diana watched the enemy drones approach their artificial ice field. The moment they entered the crystal maze, their sensors went haywire, each ice crystal acting as a tiny reflective surface, creating thousands of false returns. Now, she commanded, execute full pattern Hydra. The Leviathan's water circulation system executed its most complex sequence yet. Precisely timed jets of water created not just ice clouds, but currents. Actual flows of frozen particles moving through space in carefully calculated patterns. To the enemy's sensors, it would appear as if the ice field itself was coming alive, swirling and shifting like ocean currents. And in that chaos, the Leviathan moved like a shark through familiar waters. First target acquired, Tactical announced. They can't maintain formation in these conditions. Their sensors are completely overwhelmed. Diana allowed herself a predatory smile. Show them why humanity's naval experience isn't as primitive as they thought. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Imperial ships had trained for. The Leviathan struck from multiple angles, using the ice currents to accelerate their projectiles beyond normal velocities. Each attack seemed to come from a different direction, the ship vanishing into the swirling ice patterns between strikes. Enemy commander is signaling. Communications called out. They're requesting assistance from the Arcturus Imperial fleet, using high-priority military channels. Got you, Diana whispered. The evidence they needed, proof that these weren't just pirates, but an Imperial military operation designed to test human defenses. Ma'am, her XO approached with a datapad. We should withdraw. If they're calling for Imperial reinforcements. No. Diana studied the tactical display. That's exactly what we want. because their distress call just confirmed everything we suspected. And now, she gestured to the swirling ice field around them. We've shown them exactly what they're really facing. The remaining enemy ships tried to retreat, but they'd lost their advantage. The Leviathan's ice field had become a deadly maze, with humanity's first warship as its master. One by one, the Imperial vessels were disabled, their energy weapons useless against an enemy they couldn't properly target. In the end, only the enemy commander's ship remained intact enough to transmit their final message to the Imperial fleet. Diana made sure they had a clear channel. "Let them report exactly what happened here," she ordered. "Let them tell their masters how humanity's primitive naval tactics turned their own hubris against them. Let them fear the water in the void." As the disabled Imperial ships drifted in the artificial ice field of their own undoing, Diana sent her own message to Earth Command. Confirmation of Imperial military involvement acquired. Enemy fleet neutralized. Be advised. They're studying us, learning our capabilities. But they've just learned the wrong lesson. They think they know what we can do now. She watched the ice field swirl around her ship, a deadly dance of frozen particles and calculated chaos. They have no idea what we're really capable of. The hunt was over, but the real war was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos as the combat footage played on the massive holographic display. Representatives from a dozen species watched in horror as the Leviathan's ice field tactics systematically dismantled an Imperial battle group. "This is an outrage," the Arcturus delegate thundered, scales flaring crimson. "The use of weaponized state change physics is explicitly forbidden by the Galactic Conventions." Admiral Sarah Chen stood calmly before the Council, hands clasped behind her back. "Conventions that humanity never signed. We were never even informed of their existence until after these pirate attacks began." The Zizesthar representative's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained agitation. The human vessel's tactics show a disturbing grasp of three-dimensional combat principles. Their use of naturally occurring substances as weapons circumvents centuries of arms control treaties. Treaties designed to maintain the current balance of power, Sarah noted. "How convenient that they would have prevented us from developing the very weapons we needed to defend ourselves against your proxy attacks." The chamber fell silent at the accusation. Dr. Marcus Wong, standing beside the Admiral, activated another holographic display. "We've analyzed the captured Imperial vessels. Their systems were specifically designed to counter traditional human military doctrine, tactics that weren't even included in our application to the Council." He highlighted several technical specifications. "These ships were built to fight us before we ever reached the stars. The only question is, who gave them our military data?" The silence deepened. Sarah watched several delegates exchange uncomfortable glances. The Meridian observers, usually stoic, shifted nervously in their environmental suits. "We've also received an interesting diplomatic communique," Sarah continued. "The Zizexthar Collective is offering Earth a military partnership. Apparently, our primitive water-based weapons technology has some appeal after all." The Zizexthar representative's crystalline surface clouded with embarrassment. They had hoped to keep those negotiations secret. "The implications are clear," Marcus added. "Someone has been studying Earth's military capabilities for decades. They knew our strengths, our traditional tactics, but they didn't understand why those tactics evolved the way they did." He played another clip from the Kuiper Belt battle. "They saw our naval doctrine as primitive because they never faced an ocean. They never had to master combat in an environment where the battlefield itself could be a weapon. So when we adapted those principles to space warfare, enough." The Arcturus delegate slammed a scaled fist on the Council table. "The Imperial fleet has begun routine exercises near the human border. Perhaps it's time your species learned the difference between clever tricks and real military power." Sarah smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "You're mobilizing your fleet. Good. That's exactly what we wanted you to do." The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. "You see," Sarah continued, The Leviathan wasn't just a warship. It was a test. We needed to know who was behind the attacks, who had been studying us. More importantly, we needed you to think you understood our capabilities. Marcus activated a final holographic display, a strategic analysis of Imperial fleet movements. Your ships are gathering in predictable patterns, using standard Imperial doctrine. You think you've learned how to counter our water-based weapons. But the Leviathan showed you what we wanted you to see. Sarah's voice carried to every corner of the chamber. You're preparing to fight the wrong war, using the wrong tactics, against an enemy you still don't understand. A priority message flashed across her neural implant, right on schedule. In fact, she gestured to the tactical display. Your fleet movements have just created an interesting opportunity. Would anyone like to explain why Imperial warships are gathering near the Proxima Centauri trade routes? The Arcturus delegate's scales paled. Those routes were supposed to be secret. Or perhaps, Sarah continued, someone would like to explain these. She projected images of the captured Imperial ships, focusing on their weapon systems. These aren't standard Imperial designs. They're hybrid technologies, combining elements from multiple Council species, almost as if there was a coalition working together to test humanity's defenses. The chamber erupted again, but this time with accusations flying between the delegates. Ancient alliances began to crack as evidence of conspiracy emerged. In the chaos, Marcus leaned close to Sarah. Think they figured it out yet? No. She watched the council tear itself apart with suspicious glances and heated denials. They still think this is about military technology. They haven't realized that humanity's greatest weapon was never the Leviathan. It was their own paranoia. Marcus nodded. By trying to secretly test us, they revealed their own weaknesses, their hidden alliances. And now, Sarah watched the Arcturus delegate frantically communicate with his fleet commanders. They're about to learn why Earth's strategists study political science alongside naval warfare. The board was set. The pieces were moving. And humanity's real plans were only beginning to unfold. The Leviathan emerged from FTL near Earth's research station Hawking 1, its water tanks still regenerating from the Kuiper Belt battle. Captain Rodriguez watched the familiar blue marble of Earth in the distance, allowing herself a moment of peace before. Multiple contacts. Tactical's voice shattered the calm. Energy signatures matching. Captain, it's the Leviathan. Diana's blood ran cold as she watched the impossible scene unfold. Another ship, identical to theirs in every visible detail, was systematically destroying the research station's outer rings. That's not possible, her XO whispered. All Leviathan-class blueprints are quantum-locked in Earth's secure servers. Clearly, Diana's voice was ice. Someone found a way. Battle stations. Engineering. Status of water reserves. 60% capacity, Captain. Not ideal for extended combat. Diana studied the tactical display. The fake Leviathan was moving with uncanny precision, using their own naval-inspired tactics. Whoever had stolen their designs had also studied their combat doctrine. Ma'am. Communications cut in. We're picking up transmissions from the enemy vessel. They're human voices. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Not just their ship design, but their own people. How deep did this infiltration go? Get me a neural pattern analysis of those transmissions, Diana ordered. Something's wrong about this. Engineering, prepare for pattern Poseidon. The fake Leviathan noticed them then, turning its weapons toward its twin. The research station's crew, at least those still alive, began broadcasting distress signals. Enemy vessel is charging weapons, Tactical reported. There, Captain, they're using our exact attack patterns from the Kuiper Belt engagement. Diana allowed herself a grim smile. Of course they are. That's all they know. Engineering. Execute pattern Poseidon. Let's show them the difference between stealing a ship's design and understanding its soul. The Leviathan's water tanks cycled into a configuration they'd never tested outside simulations. Instead of creating ice fields or projectiles, they began generating superheated steam clouds, using them as a propulsion system. The enemy crew, clearly expecting standard naval tactics, fired their weapons into empty space as the real Leviathan performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. No naval vessel, space or sea, should have been able to move like that. Neural pattern analysis complete. Communications announced. Enemy crew's patterns show signs of artificial modification, some kind of technological overlay on human consciousness. They're puppets, Diana realized. Someone isn't just copying our technology. They're trying to copy our people, our way of thinking. But they don't understand. She keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, prepare for close quarters engagement. They may have our design, but they don't have our history. They don't know why we fight the way we do. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. 2 identical ships, but only one crew that truly understood the philosophy behind their vessel's design. The fake Leviathan fired its weapons with technical precision, following textbook naval doctrine. The real Leviathan danced. Steam clouds became both weapon and shield, superheated particles interfering with enemy targeting systems while providing thrust in impossible directions. Diana drew on centuries of naval warfare experience, not just the tactics but the intuition that came from truly understanding 3-dimensional combat. They're trying to predict our moves based on combat logs, her XO noted as another enemy salvo missed. They don't realize those logs were just the beginning of what we can do. That's the difference. Diana watched their counter-attack strike home, disabling the enemy's primary water tanks. They studied our battles. We lived them. Engineering. Execute final phase of Pattern Poseidon. The Leviathan's remaining water reserves deployed in a maneuver that looked like madness until the moment it worked. Superheated steam, flash frozen, and then instantly vaporized again, created a cascade of pressure waves that the enemy ship's copied systems couldn't handle. As the fake Leviathan systems began to fail, Diana ordered teams to prepare for boarding. They needed answers, and the puppet crew would have them. The neural technology they discovered aboard the enemy ship told a disturbing story. Someone, likely a coalition of council species, had found a way to overlay artificial neural patterns onto human minds, creating crews that could operate stolen technology while following programmed tactical protocols. They really don't understand us at all, Diana told her XO as they secured the captured vessel. They think human military prowess is about technology, about tactics you can copy and paste. They don't realize that our strength comes from something they can't steal. Our adaptability, her XO nodded. Our creativity under pressure. Our soul, Diana corrected, watching Earth's rescue ships approach the damaged research station. They can copy our bodies, our ships, even our thoughts, but they can't copy what makes us human. She opened a channel to Earth Command, knowing this discovery would change everything. The enemy wasn't just trying to defeat humanity. They were trying to become them. And in doing so, they'd revealed both their greatest fear and their fundamental weakness. The real war was about to begin, and humanity would fight it not just with ships and weapons, but with the one thing their enemies could never truly understand, the indomitable human spirit. The Arcturus Imperial fleet materialized in Earth's outer defense sphere exactly where Admiral Chen had predicted they would. 300 warships, arranged in perfect geometric formations, ready to crush humanity's primitive defenses. On the Leviathan's bridge, Captain Rodriguez watched the tactical display with carefully hidden satisfaction. Right on schedule. Status of Operation Undertow. All ships in position, her XO confirmed. The Imperials are reading exactly what we want them to read. 30 civilian water haulers on standard transport routes. The enemy fleet's commander, no doubt feeling generous, broadcast on open channels. Attention human vessels. Your species' illegal military actions have forced our response. Surrender your military assets and submit to Imperial protection, or be destroyed. Diana exchanged a glance with Admiral Chen, who had transferred her flag to the Leviathan for this operation. Should we show them our response? Sarah's smile was predatory. Let's teach them why Earth's oceans made us who we are. The Imperial fleet advanced in textbook formation, their energy weapons charged to overwhelm the pitiful human defenses they detected. Their scans showed only a scattered collection of civilian ships, mostly water haulers supplying the outer colonies. That's when Operation Undertow revealed its true nature. All ships, Diana broadcast, execute pattern tsunami. 30 civilian water haulers suddenly shifted course with impossible precision. Their hulls, disguised with years of carefully crafted transponder data and false readings, shed their camouflage like sharks, revealing their teeth. Enemy fleet is responding, Tactical reported with satisfaction. They're confused. Their targeting systems are trying to reconcile civilian transponder data with military-grade maneuvers. Show them why you don't bring energy weapons to a water fight. Sarah commanded. The water haulers, each secretly modified with military-grade systems, executed their attack with devastating synchronization. Massive tanks of water, previously thought to be simple cargo, transformed into weapons that the Imperial fleet had no defense against. Diana watched the tactical display as the first phase completed. Status of the lunar batteries. Ready and synchronized, her XO confirmed. The enemy still hasn't detected them. Hidden in the dark side of Luna, Earth's real secret weapon waited. Not advanced technology, but simple kinetic artillery adapted from naval railguns. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the best ones. The Imperial fleet's commander, finally realizing the trap, attempted to reorganize his forces, but he was fighting the last war, preparing for the water-based tactics they'd seen from the Leviathan. This was something else entirely. Lunar batteries, fire at will, Diana ordered. The dark side of Luna lit up as dozens of massive railguns, hidden in the moon's ancient craters, launched their payloads. Not energy weapons or exotic ammunition, but simple kinetic projectiles. Massive spheres of ice, accelerated to relativistic speeds. The Imperial fleet's energy shields, designed to dissipate plasma and laser fire, proved tragically ineffective against solid projectiles moving at appreciable percentages of light speed, especially when those projectiles shattered on impact, creating clouds of high-velocity ice shrapnel. Enemy fleet is attempting to regroup, Tactical announced. They're falling back to secondary positions. Not today. Sarah's voice was steel. Execute Phase 3. This was the true genius of Operation Undertow. As the Imperial fleet retreated, they found themselves herded into killing zones preceded with what appeared to be debris from earlier battles. In reality, each field of apparent wreckage was carefully placed water ice, waiting to be weaponized. Pattern Hydra. All ships, Diana commanded. The debris fields came alive. Synchronized energy pulses from the disguised water haulers flash-heated specific portions of the ice fields, creating expanding clouds of superheated steam that overwhelmed Imperial sensors. Other sections were flash-frozen into new configurations, creating three-dimensional mazes that turned familiar space into a deadly labyrinth. The Imperial fleet, trained for direct engagement in open space, found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't properly target. Every time they adapted to one form of attack, the water changed state again, presenting a new threat. Enemy casualties mounting, Tactical reported with professional satisfaction. Their formation is breaking down. They're firing on their own ships. Diana nodded grimly. They never understood. We didn't master water because we were primitive. We mastered it because it taught us how to think in ways they never imagined. The battle reached its crescendo as the Leviathan itself moved into position, not to attack, but to demonstrate, to show the galaxy why humanity's naval heritage wasn't a weakness, but their greatest strength. Send the final message, Sarah ordered. Diana keyed the broadcast. To the Imperial fleet. You came here expecting to find a primitive species clinging to outdated military traditions. Instead, you found something your tactical computers can't quantify, something your strategic AIs can't predict. You found humanity's true strength, our ability to turn nature itself into an ally. The remaining Imperial ships, those still capable of FTL travel, began emergency jumps away from Earth. They left behind a graveyard of broken vessels and shattered assumptions about humanity's military capabilities. "They'll be back," Sarah noted quietly. Yes, Diana watched the tactical display show the final tallies of their victory. But next time, they'll be afraid of water. And that fear, that's a weapon they gave us for free. Earth's first major fleet action was over. Humanity had proven itself not just capable of defending its territory, but of revolutionizing space combat itself. The age of energy weapons and predictable tactics was ending. The age of water had begun. The combined Arcturus pirate fleet dropped out of FTL in waves, their ships arranged in attack formations designed specifically to counter humanity's known tactics. They expected to find Earth's defenses weakened, its forces scattered after the previous battle. Instead, they found silence. On the Leviathan's bridge, Captain Rodriguez watched the enemy fleet's confusion with quiet satisfaction. How many ships did they bring this time? 500 and counting, her XO reported. Multiple species designs. They've called in every favor, every alliance. They really thought this would be a simple subjugation. Admiral Chen's voice came through the command channel. "All ships, maintain emissions control. Let them come to us." The enemy fleet advanced cautiously, their sensors straining to locate Earth's defenders. They'd studied the water-based tactics, prepared countermeasures for ice fields and steam clouds. Their ships now carried modified shields, reinforced against kinetic impacts. They were fighting the last war. "Enemy fleet approaching Luna," Tactical announced. They're completely ignoring the dark side. They think they know all our tricks. Diana allowed herself a small smile. Humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology. It was their assumption that they understood us. Signal the submarines. Deep in Luna's shadow, where the enemy fleet didn't bother to look, Earth's oldest nuclear deterrent had been reborn. Ballistic missile submarines, retrofitted for space operations, waited in perfect silence. Their crews had trained for decades in the art of staying hidden, and vacuum was just another ocean to them. "All ships, execute Operation Flood," Admiral Chen commanded. The space around Earth came alive. Cargo ships that the enemy had dismissed as civilian traffic suddenly shed their false signatures, revealing weapon ports and military-grade drives. Maintenance satellites transformed into weapon platforms. And from Luna's dark side, the submarines launched their payloads. Not missiles, but something far worse. Autonomous water spheres, each containing enough mass to devastate a capital ship when accelerated to relativistic speeds. "The enemy is responding," Tactical reported. They're targeting our decoys. They still don't understand. Diana watched the battle unfold with professional pride. The enemy had studied their previous encounters, learned to counter what they thought were humanity's ultimate weapons, but they'd missed the most fundamental lesson of all. "Deploy the maintenance drones," she ordered. Thousands of small robots, previously ignored as routine space debris, activated simultaneously. Each carried a small amount of water, not enough to be a weapon on its own, but together. "Pattern Maelstrom," Diana commanded. "Show them why humanity's naval experience wasn't about the weapons. It was about understanding the battlefield itself." The drones moved in synchronized patterns, their water reserves creating a three-dimensional grid of frozen particles throughout the battle space. Each point in the grid could be flash-frozen or vapor-heated on command, turning the entire engagement zone into one massive environmental weapon. Enemy ships found their carefully planned formations disrupted by sudden pressure waves, their targeting systems confused by constantly changing thermal signatures. Every adaptation they made was countered not by brute force, but by changing the nature of space itself. "They're launching their counterattack," her XO warned. "New weapon signatures. They've developed hybrid energy kinetic weapons. Too late, Diana watched the tactical display with satisfaction. They're still thinking like space warriors, not naval commanders. Signal the deep space platforms. Hidden beyond the asteroid belt, automated platforms that the enemy had dismissed as research stations revealed their true purpose. Each contained massive quantities of water ice, harvested from comets over decades of secret preparation. All platforms. Execute pattern deluge, Admiral Chen commanded. The platforms detonated simultaneously, releasing their frozen cargo in precisely calculated patterns. The enemy fleet found itself caught in artificial currents of ice and vapor, their formations shattered by forces they couldn't fight because they couldn't understand them. Enemy casualties mounting, Tactical reported. Their command and control is breaking down. They're sending out general retreat signals. Diana opened a channel to all ships. Remember what we learned in the oceans of Earth. Water isn't just a weapon. It's life itself. It shapes worlds, creates and destroys in equal measure. We didn't master it. We learned to work with it. That's something they may never understand. The battle reached its climax as the Leviathan led humanity's final charge. Not with exotic weapons or overwhelming force, but with the accumulated wisdom of centuries of naval warfare. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic demonstrated why humanity's primitive experience had prepared them for this moment. As the enemy fleet retreated in disorder, leaving behind the wreckage of their hubris, Admiral Chen sent one final message to the Galactic Council. You thought our naval traditions were obsolete. You thought our understanding of water warfare was primitive. But you forgot something crucial. Earth's oceans taught us how to think in ways you never imagined. We didn't just survive them. We learned from them. And now the galaxy itself is our ocean. The war was over. Humanity had proven not just their right to exist among the stars, but their unique contribution to the art of warfare itself. The Leviathan and its crew had shown that true strength comes not from advanced technology, but from understanding the fundamental forces that shape existence itself. In the end, humanity's first warship had done more than win battles. It had changed the way the